Medhi Hasan is back with another video talking about the hypocrisy of the successful channel Jubilee.
Welcome back to Jubilee.
Claiming to bring people together through their various series like Middle Ground and Surrounded.
Women have more advantages than men.
Hello everyone, I am Charlie Kirk. I am surrounded by 20 woke college kids.
When it really seems like all of their content drives a wedge between people and ideologies, really just platforming the most hateful and extreme.
Whites are Native Americans.
I am an immigrant.
Get the hell out.
I don't even like...
There's a civil rights movement that is described as the LGBTQ.
Jubilee sucks, and I'm tired of pretending it doesn't. What's even the purpose? Let's get 20 angry people in a room and have them all yell at one person and call it content.
Sweetie, can I ask you another question?
I didn't even answer your first question.
I'm not going to force you into a yes or no.
I promise you can't force you to do anything.
Okay, I'm not.
If it happened as you said, I would say that's...
While we're at it, let's throw in a bunch of hate crimes. Hashtag content.
LGBTQ identity is a social contagion.
Will this somehow lead to world peace?
There's no way that you are this fucking stupid. I am this fucking stupid. I'm a fucking idiot. I'm a dumb, stupid fucking idiot.
Yeah, for all of us.
The entire premise of Jubilee makes no sense. People are thrown together in a room and supposed to debate with almost zero supervision. Yet the arguments are supposed to be in good faith, and somehow coming out of it, we're supposed to have all learned something. Newsflash, virtually no one argues in good faith.
Hello, my name is Jake. I am a living human being who is currently alive. My first claim is that I don't think I should be Hello. Okay, I'm going to talk really fast in order to make a half-baked point and just hope you don't call me out on it. Does it really matter if I kill you? Secondly, hold on.
Please don't interrupt me.
I have a family. Do you have a family?
Answer the question.
Yes. It matters if you... To you?
Jubilee, a YouTube channel that gained popularity during the COVID-19 pandemic, describes its mission as to provoke understanding and create human connection, and has gained over 10.2 million subscribers through supposedly doing so. But now, as journalist Lily Tish describes, Jubilee has become the junk food of YouTube debates. They're sensational, dramatized, and becoming increasingly extreme. Jubilee has perfected a formula to maximize clicks and views at the expense of meaningful conversation, with provocative titles and prompts, and collaboration with conservative pundits, leaving audiences with nothing but cheap entertainment over any real insight.
What shape would you say you think the Earth is?
It appears to me to be a stationary plane. As opposed to the vastness of infinity of space, I would find it to be an ice plane where we have a localized sun and our environment thrives there.
There's nothing that exemplifies this more than the Surrounded video that Jubilee did with Medhi Hasan, which quickly veered off track, highlighting everything wrong with Jubilee. The utility of Jubilee's latest debate-style videos, in which you have one person who's educated on a subject in which they want to debate on, surrounded literally by people who are a little bit less educated, all the way to a lot less educated on the subject, who all try to win this fight-style debate, has in itself been the subject of debate. The question being, is this sort of content supposed to bring entertainment to the internet or education? And what is Jubilee valuing more? This all reached a head when journalist Medhi Hasan debated 20 far-right conservatives in a Jubilee video, one of which, who said his name was Connor after some hesitation, self-admitted to being a fascist.
Quite frankly, if Trump is anti-constitution, good, and I think he should go further.
So this is wonderfully revealing of the modern conservative mindset, so I appreciate you spelling it out so openly. You're saying you don't care about the Constitution, but actually you do, because you quite like the Second Amendment. You just don't like the bits that you disagree with. Can I just be clear on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm more than willing to amend it and include
whenever
the
it's in
Second
your
Amendment.
favor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So can Democrats do the same when they're in office?
No, absolutely not. Because
so you don't
it's
believe in
enemy.
democracy?
No, I don't. Absolutely not.
What do you believe in?
Autocracy.
You're a little bit more than a far-right Republican.
Hey, what can I say?
I think you can say I'm a fascist.
Yeah, I am.
And after the video was published, Connor was fired from his job. Though, not surprisingly, Connor was not the only one who said disgusting things in this video.
But listen to me. I am an immigrant. I'm speaking from personal experience.
Get the hell out.
I don't even like... I should get the hell out.
Yes.
Why?
I don't want you here.
Why?
Because you come here and say all this bullshit
Why?
about how Americans are lazy.
Why?
You push your left-wing
I never
politics.
said Americans are lazy.
I don't know why you say this.
I never said Americans are lazy.
Yes, you are.
The only person
You're saying
attacking
immigrants
people
have to
is
come
you.
into this country so they can do jobs that we don't want to do. That's
never said
exactly
those
what you
words.
said.
From the moment it started, this debate quickly spiraled out of control, with Jubilee's self-proclaimed focus on finding a middle ground completely thrown out the window. Instead, Medhi Hasan's talking points were ignored, and the far right's ideologies were doubled down upon. For example, Hasan made a talking point that Donald Trump is defying the Constitution. Instead of really debating this point in any meaningful way, Connor spoke about his desire for an autocracy.
What do you believe in?
Autocracy.
And then when Connor brought up Nazi talking points, he claimed he didn't even care about being called a Nazi. And then some people in the back were clapping at his proclamations. After the debate, Medhi Hasan tweeted, "To be clear, I didn't know they would be actual, outright open fascists. To be fair to me, that's not how the debate was sold to me. You can see my shock when they start expressing their views openly." As far as Connor's statements after the video was released to Jubilee, he said that being fired from his job made him feel destroyed to the Rift TV, a right-wing online social media brand.
He was trying to press me and he asked, well, are you a fascist? Now, I am a Catholic at the end of the day. That's my faith. That's my politics. That's what is sort of undergirds my entire ideology, I would say. And I knew that when he was using that term, he wasn't asking me, do I read Mussolini? Do I read Giovanni Gentile or anything like that? He was asking me, do you believe what the church teaches? And do you want to see that applied in society? To which I responded, yes, I am.
The fact that a right-wing social media brand is platforming an open fascist says a lot about how, in general, far-right conservatives are feeling about the idea of fascism. The Rift TV also started a fundraiser for Connor to help him as he looks for jobs, which quickly raised $30,000. The description of the campaign on Give, Send, Go, a Christian crowdfunding site that has become the go-to platform for controversial crowdfunding campaigns, said this is cancel culture and political discrimination on full display. To me, there's a few obvious, blatant displays of irony through Connor's actions between Connor's statements in the video with Medhi Hasan and his actions afterwards. For example, the blatant irony of a self-proclaimed alt-right fascist starting a crowdfunding campaign the second things don't go his way. Connor, or the platform that started a crowdfunding campaign, also complained about him losing his freedom of speech, when Connor openly admitted in the video that he wanted some people to lose their freedom of speech or other basic freedoms. Connor allegedly previously worked at a renewable energy company. At the risk of doxing, I don't want to name the specific alleged company that he used to work at. But you know, renewable energy, the thing that's at risk with the current administration's policies. And renewable energy companies tend to be pretty left-leaning. Connor was allegedly pretty new to working there as well, and on a sort of probationary period. It would make no sense for a renewable energy company to openly employ someone like Connor, who made public statements like he did on a YouTube video. And now Connor's crying about how it's not fair? Interesting. This Reddit comment breaks down really well exactly the insidious nature of what went down in this Jubilee video. It's a big deal because previously, people who share Connor's beliefs would have never been so brazenly open and public about them. But with Trump's re-election, they feel emboldened to openly declare their fascist beliefs. And based on the applause his declaration received from the other guests, fascism has become the accepted norm in Trump voter spaces. The shock isn't at the beliefs, it's that people feel emboldened to outright take the mask off. But here's why Jubilee becomes the ultimate problem in this dynamic. Jubilee ultimately didn't properly vet who they were letting participate in this video, meaning they gave Connor the platform and the opportunity to speak and share his beliefs, and rallied a delusional cult of people behind him, who love to cry outrage and cancel culture at the consequences of their actions, because they've learned they can weaponize incompetence in massive numbers and feign ignorance like it's their job, as if they have no idea why saying you're a would be a big no-no in America, as if the US didn't used to fight wars against that ideology. Jubilee seems to double down on the concept of platforming everyone, no matter how dangerous their beliefs. But where is the line? and what are their motivations? Jubilee's political motivations are murky, yet it's evident that their divisive content does bring in steady revenue. While their overall net worth isn't publicly available, Jubilee raised $1.1 million from investors in 2022, bringing funding to a total of $3.25 million. And from there, their content skyrocketed, and likely their revenue. They even came out with another channel based on love and dating, and the general idea is that all of Jubilee's content is asking the important societal questions. And is it doing it in a tactful way? What cost is Jubilee's content having on the general public? The website deliberativecitizenship.org discusses Jubilee's deliberation in its content format. Even in Jubilee's popular middle ground episodes, Jubilee consistently fails to bring in any voices that represent a middle ground perspective, bringing in two groups from polar opposite extremes and having them debate opposing sides.
Sphere. If you think that is the shape of the Earth, point to it now. If you think the other model is the shape of the Earth, point to it now.
There are studies that during a debate, oftentimes people simply decide who is right before the debate even begins. We find that competitive debates lead to polarization because people persuade themselves that their side is right even before the debate starts, said Joel van der Wiel, associate professor at the Center for Research in Experimental Economics and Political Decision-Making at the University of Amsterdam. The debate itself does not lead to convergence of opinions, so the initial polarization persists, even when we ask them a day after the debate. So if Jubilee is having two people of polar opposite extremes debate in hour-plus long videos, and most oftentimes people have already decided who is right in a debate, why are people still watching this? Here's my theory on why Jubilee works. Essentially, Jubilee has these long videos where bite-sized clips can be taken from them and extracted, where either side can claim that the other was destroyed during the debate. This is something that has existed almost since the genesis of YouTube. Ben Shapiro destroys feminists online, and vice versa, where it's just these small clips extracted from these longer debates to try and make it look like one side won over the other. It's all essentially viewer bias. With so much long-form content with either side expressing their views and opinions, each side can view the video the entire time with the perspective that their side is winning. You can essentially tune out the other person's perspectives and walk away having thought the entire time that your side won, your side was right, the other side got destroyed. Because before the video had even started, you had unconsciously decided that your side had won. I don't think anyone was ever finding a middle ground. We were always just deciding who was winning in our minds. At least with these types of debate styles where it's two opposite extreme ends debating in defensive positions with argument style prompts. So are some debates even worth having? In his book, The Limitations of the Open Mind, Jeremy Fantle notes that some arguments are cleverly deceptive, and engaging with them open-mindedly can actually undermine knowledge. Fantle sees his stance as consistent with intellectual humility. No one is an expert on everything, and we're all unlikely to spot fallacies in complex, deceptive arguments outside our expertise. In 1945, Karl Popper wrote the book The Open Society and Its Enemies, exploring the paradox of tolerance. Essentially, he emphasizes that we are not obligated to tolerate hateful speech, just as we do not tolerate murder. Essentially, not everything needs to be debated. The most extreme voices do not need to be heard and understood, and some debates are not worth having, especially when there's an imbalance in the ways in which each person is approaching the debate, where one person is solely operating off of logical fallacies to trip up the other person. And these debates don't end up really going anywhere. So let's discuss some of Jubilee's content and how it operates within this paradox. Some of Jubilee's titles at face value just sound really ridiculous and make it obvious that they aren't tackling or challenging any real issues. They're just creating wacky, provocative content that shocks people enough to click on it at the expense of those participating and the viewpoints of the viewer. For example, can one woke teen survive 20 Trump supporters?
The question I have for you,
Oh, you don't
is
know
how
that
do you feel
though.
about Donald
Do you know that? No.
Okay,
Absolutely
so
not.
you think that she slept with 4.5 million people to get in her position of power?
But the one
Wait,
person that
are
she
you
did
serious?
was the
60 Republicans versus 60 Democrats debate.
That's not happening. Y'all, just because you read it on 4chan does not make it real, baby. That's not what happens. That's not what happens. So let's get ourselves educated about what actual healthcare is. If you're not trans, don't talk about it. It's not your business. If you were a cisgender person, stay out of it.
Don't talk about guns.
We are not on that subject.
Yeah, we're not talking about guns.
How can you have any productive conversation with 60 people in a room debating each other? Fit versus fat.
I mean, if I was president, hell, I'd put all of them in a fat concentration camp so they can concentrate on dieting and exercising, because being fat is completely not acceptable.
Do you really mean that, or are you just saying that?
I'm dead ass, yeah.
That's just a great premise. Should wives serve their husbands? Trad wives versus feminists. Rich men versus poor men.
When you say it's easier to get rich now than it ever has been, who's getting rich? And if you look at the data, it's the top 1% of the population.
You asked someone if they're, how do you self-identify as rich or poor? It's just a weird concept. Hey, you, are you poor? Hey, brokey, come stand in this room and debate a really rich person. Debate them on what? What are you debating them on? Exactly. What's better in our current society? I think we all know that we would rather have more money. Who's happier? I mean, that's all subjective. This is all standard things. I don't think you need to get people in a room and demean them to have the answers.
We're clapping for the rich guy?
What makes a real man? 50 men debate. What makes you a real man is definitely standing in a room with 49 other men, all for a YouTube video, and debating them about manhood.
What is he demonstrating?
Dismissive of men.
Dismissive?
Showing this general sentiment of animosity toward men. He's showing it.
How?
You just did it.
So I said that you have a disdain towards women because you view breaking down societal structures that benefit men.
You called me
as hating men.
misogynistic.
Because that's literally the definition.
Do you think he's misogynistic?
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. Jubilee claims that its content is non-biased, focused on finding that middle ground, on finding empathy, not pushing any sort of agenda. Yet just based on these video topics alone, I feel like I'm noticing a certain pattern. Maybe that's just me. For example, according to the website Gamamari, in the Middle Ground episode, What Makes a Real Man? 50 Men Debate, prompts included, does society need more trad wives or girl bosses? And are depressed men weak? These prompts aren't balanced starting points for meaningful conversation, but instead leading questions. The prompt's use of buzzwords like tradwives and girl bosses limits the scope of the debate to those two options, when obviously there's a whole range of roles available to women in society. Similarly, the question, are depressed men weak, conflates mental illness with weakness before the debate has begun. It was alleged that Jubilee was planning a debate on eugenics at one point, and that they were looking for different people to have them all debate eugenics in a video called 25 White People versus 25 Black People. Prompts sent to potential cast members allegedly contained the prompt, does IQ and race have a correlation?
Jubilee Media is allegedly planning a debate that would have people discussing eugenics and whether or not race is connected with IQ. And the prompts that they want them to discuss are insane. Allegedly, the claims that they are wanting people to discuss on camera in a 25 versus 25 format are: 1, do races think the same or differently? Would you date outside of your race? These are talking points. And don't just take it from me. Here is the listing of the debate on their website.
After online backlash, they did not proceed with that debate. Alexis Rose, the person that made that previous TikTok, was formally featured in a Jubilee video titled, One Conservative versus 25 LGBTQ Activists. She made a TikTok speaking out. Alexis stated they were not told who they would be debating against and had no idea what their debate topics would be. Some of those topics were things like there's no such thing as same-sex marriage, which same-sex marriage factually exists, so that's a ridiculous starting point for a debate.
My first claim is that there is no such thing as same-sex marriage.
As well as transgenderism should be eradicated from public life entirely, and that LGBTQ plus identity is a social contagion.
My next claim is that LGBTQ identity is a social contagion.
Wild topics to be debating to LGBTQ plus individuals themselves. More like kind of a hate crime to be telling them that.
This is going to be part 2 of discussing Jubilee, my experience there, and why I think they are officially and without a doubt an alt-right media organization. I had no idea that Jubilee was going to allow a Nazi to join a group of queer people and call for the eradication of our community. I should have done more research, 100%, and I'll own that. But more than anything, I wanted to go and advocate for a community that not only am I a part of, but like my sister's a part of, my partner's a part of. I am inundated and blessed with so many beautiful trans people in my life. I'm a queer person myself. This is everything to me.
Jubilee also had Myron Gaines on a debate from Fresh and Fit, which you're familiar with if you've seen my main channel video on Fresh and Fit. They had him on their fit versus fat video, in which Myron said, if I was president, I'd put them all in a fat concentration camp, and that depression most of the time is not real.
To be honest, at least.
Depression most of the time is not real, no.
That's fucking wild.
No.
That's fucking wild.
Myron is often a rage baiter, says things for shock and outrage, and you have to wonder if Jubilee had him on simply for the content, the engagement, and rage bait. Jubilee has also partnered with Straight Arrow News for its fact-checking, a news service that states it's unbiased, straight facts. However, Straight Arrow News is founded and owned by Joe Ricketts, a billionaire and major Republican donor, who donated $2 million to Trump groups in 2024. North Star radio producer Casey Cree recently created a video analysis accusing Jubilee Media of having allegiance to right-wing values. This is because Jubilee often invites right-wing participants onto its Middle Ground or debate series who have an entire career off of debating these sorts of topics, thus putting their opposing party, the left, at a disadvantage, because you can be good at winning an argument, and that doesn't necessarily mean that your argument is very good. Just because you utilize bully tactics and logical fallacies and confuse and trip up a person doesn't mean that your point is valid all the time. Casey references a few videos to show Jubilee's bias. For example, in liberal lesbians versus conservative lesbians, 3 of the 4 conservative women have large social media followings, where they often discuss their political views. Similarly, liberal gays versus conservative gays. The video features conservative influencers who built their platform around their political views, one of which helped pass a bill banning children from receiving gender-affirming care in Nebraska.
Of the 4 liberal gay men in this video, 3 have a social media presence, but only 1 uses their social media to talk exclusively about being a liberal gay man. Of the 4 conservative gay men in this video, Amir is a popular YouTuber who exclusively spreads conservative talking points. Clarkson is a popular figure on Instagram and YouTube who makes content completely centered around conservative politics. Mario is a gay man who proudly passed a bill in Nebraska denying children 18 and younger from receiving gender-affirming care.
Casey stated in the video, these people don't just have opinions, they have scripts. So again, what is Jubilee's motivation for this content? And do they care about what they're doing? Let's examine some statements from Jubilee's CEO, Jason Y. Lee, in an interview conducted by the incredible journalist Taylor Lorenz, so we can unpack the true motivations behind Jubilee.
You've probably come across content from Jubilee Media. The company's stated goal is to spark conversations that matter and come together around our shared humanity. But is their model working? Here to break it all down is Jason Y. Lee, the founder of Jubilee Media.
Taylor and Jason start out the interview discussing how Jubilee started as a nonprofit, which is definitely interesting.
I think the company originally started as a nonprofit. Can you tell me how this YouTube behemoth got started?
Yeah, Jubilee began rather accidentally. My 22nd birthday happened to coincide with the Haiti earthquake, and because of the recession, there was very little work to be done. So I decided to do this crazy thing. I decided to go to a New York subway stop to busk and sing. So soon thereafter, I started something called Jubilee Project, which was a 501c3. And the purpose of Jubilee Project was to create videos similar to the Haiti video that would raise money and awareness for various causes.
But after the 2016 election, Jason wanted to create a media company all off of true human voices, off of finding a middle ground.
And it wasn't until the 2016 presidential election that I actually decided to start Jubilee Media. I just felt like the country was more divided than ever. And I felt like there was just this huge white space in the center for young people, which was about empathy, about dialogue, about nuance. Could we create a media company that is not about featuring just the left side or just the right side, but featuring true human voices and finding some kind of middle ground there?
How would he find a middle ground? Through welcoming the most extreme voices onto the Jubilee platform and calling it content.
One of our first big shows that we created was a show called Middle Ground. What it would do is it would bring together two quote-unquote opposing sides, but rather than just squaring off for a, like a Fox or CNN style debate or kind of everyone yelling at each other, we said, is there a way for us to find middle grounds between conservatives and liberals, or between Christians and atheists, or even between flat earthers and round earthers, right?
Taylor Lorenz asks, when debating a middle ground between something like flat earth versus round earth, one which is objectively correct, the other a conspiracy theory, well, what's the purpose of doing something like that? Why is there a need to find a middle ground, at all? Because you're debating someone who's not operating on the same sphere of logic. Yes, I said sphere. Get mad, flat earthers. So you're inevitably setting yourself up for failure.
Some of the stuff that you just brought up earlier about sort of middle ground and this idea of helping people find this middle ground. You mentioned the flat earthers versus round earthers. I don't know, people that rightfully understand the earth is round. What is the benefit to sort of finding the middle ground between those two views when one is sort of objectively correct and one is a sort of deeply problematic conspiracy theory?
We always make sure we check ourselves too. Are we making sure that we are doing more good than harm? Something that we had to start to introduce just to kind of combat this idea of spreading misinformation was we actually have incorporated now fact checks within our content, and you'll see it kind of pop up in middle ground and we're seeing this on every which way, right? That individuals on whatever side of whatever issue will kind of share some information. We don't want to spread that.
Taylor, the journalist who's interviewing Jason, also mentions the prolific ways in which dangerous ideologies utilize a platforming of any sorts to propagate and spread their hateful messages, while simultaneously claiming outrage and that they're being targeted and victimized. Taylor also very fairly points out that as one side becomes more and more extreme, the idea of finding a middle ground becomes terrifying, as the middle ground itself is slipping further into extremism as well.
Something like trans rights, right? That's a good example. Trans people deserve rights, right? It seems like a lot of issues, there's not a moral middle ground.
What we have found is that the more that individuals are face to face and hearing experiences and seeing individuals where they're wow, I've never met a trans person, but this is the first time I'm hearing from Taylor, this trans individual, it's really shedding a lot of humanity and light to me. And we're seeing a lot of evolution, actually.
Jason has mentioned a few times the story of someone meeting a trans person for the first time. Is this supposed incident where someone meets a trans person for the first time and finds out that a trans person is a person with human rights the same as them, all taking place in a middle ground episode? A situation where the person is also debating the existence of trans rights to the trans person's face? And that video is being broadcasted to millions of viewers who may also agree with that bigoted stance. So even if their mind changes after the fact, they're still participating in spreading quite a bit of hate. I fail to see the net positive.
You're distracting from the fact that a boy wearing a skirt in a girl's bathroom raped a girl.
But not a trans woman.
Well, there's no such thing as a trans woman.
Oh, yes, it is. You're looking at one right now.
And the scariest part of this interview to me personally is when Jason said that Jubilee's main audience is a young demographic.
Our audience is primarily young individuals.
Therefore, naive and impressionable individuals. Jason claimed that in order to ensure they're not platforming far-right grifters, their casting team is very thorough and does rounds of interviews before letting anyone on the show.
And it's something that we do. I think our casting team does a very good job of we are constantly, it's not hey, someone's raised their hand, they say, hey, I've got whatever, I'm an XYZ person, and we say, come on in. we'll actually do rounds of interviews with them. And also we do edit our videos, right? We're not spreaders of information or ideologies that might be hateful or bad or kind of reductive.
I think it's fair to say Jason might need to look into a new casting team. Jason also said something about hoping Jubilee would in the future be hosting a presidential debate, also that young people would be able to tune into it more.
Because I think when we watch things like the presidential election debate, for example, a lot of young people in particular are tuning out because they feel like it's so rote, it's very scripted, it's all very, very kind of practiced lines, and people are even questioning the moderation of it, right? The fact checking of it. And the reason why we are hopeful that in the future, like a Jubilee can host something like this is because if you look at any of our content, this is featuring normal individuals, normal perspective, normal questions.
I had to re-watch this a few times to be sure that I heard it right. When listening to those who've appeared in a Jubilee video, like Alexis, or looking at the imbalance between those who appear, the disadvantages between those who come in prepared, debating is their career, they know how to properly handle an argument and debate, or all of the various leading questions in the prompts handled on Jubilee videos. While Jason continually reiterates that he's entirely focused on finding a middle ground in Jubilee content, his content is seemingly doing the exact opposite, skewing the very idea and perspective of what is the people's middle ground. YouTuber Just Jaden explains really well the effect that Jubilee can have on society.
They instill this idea that the oppressed have to relive their traumatic experiences with someone who was a part of the group that hurt them, and not just a part of it, somebody who believes in it. These videos just do not exist in a vacuum, and there are real people who are living with real consequences in a world filled with biases and hate.
The ultimate question is all of this intentional? Or is it the after effect of a media company spiraling into rage baiting for views and engagement? For a company that preaches empathy, they don't seem to care about the broader long-term effect that their content can have, as well as short-term what it could feel like to be a trans, disabled, or gay person on a Jubilee video, and have your entire existence be questioned, or be accosted in your face by a predominant pseudo-intellectual with a platform, who Jubilee decided to further platform. I do continue to think ultimately the best form of accountability we have in our current digital age is silence. I wanted to talk about why Jubilee sucks, but at the same time, they're masters of engagement, garnering reactions through people wanting their various sides to win, or people being curious at the preposterous video prompts, getting reeled in by the short clips that make their rounds on TikTok and Twitter. But if that engagement leads to harm, the greatest utility we have is complete silence.